Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Horror Master YouTube channel. Welcome back to day number 20. El número 20, el veintón ya llegamos. 20 episodes so far, my guys. Jesus Christ. Like I said, I feel like with each video, my sanity just going deeper and deeper and deeper into oblivion. But like I said, I thank you guys so much for sticking to with me, guys. Like I said, we're on the 20th episode, and with the title of this video, you can kind of tell which franchise we're going to be tackling. A franchise that a lot of people have a hard time getting into, which I understand why, because watching all these films. So we're gonna be tackling the entire Puppet Master franchise, a franchise that I feel with the catalyst of a franchise like Child's Play, they kind of took almost the same concept of demonic dolls and kind of made it more into a more, I guess, more puppets, more dolls in terms of that, like killer dolls, more killer dolls, which eventually, I mean, it spawned onto having this franchise for a total of 14 films. My God, I think this is the biggest franchise I have tackled so far. It might be the biggest one of the entire series. I don't know, depending on how I do with the Hellraiser and Halloween films, how those films are gonna be. But for the sake of this now, 14 fucking films. This franchise has been for 14 films. Some of them are great, some of them are mag, but the majority of them are so bad. Which let's get into the racket because we got 14 films to talk about. So let's get into it. So at number 14, at the bottom of the barrel, we have Puppet Master Axis Termination. Now, I feel like the later Puppet Master films, besides one that we're going to talk about higher in the list, are more misses than hits. With Axis Termination, to me, just was something that just uh didn't really catch my attention, to be honest. Like, when I think of Puppet Master, I think of more bloody, more gory, not much gore, but more creative ways of how the puppets are able to get away with murders. And with this, well, it's during World War II, which for some people might like that. Even though I'm my minors in history, I kind of do dig that appreciation for history. But whenever you take kind of spitting off and kind of rewriting the lore of the Puppet Master, it's kind of like a big mess. So it's kind of a miss for me in terms of Puppet Master films. So Puppet Master Axe Termination is at by number 14. At number 13, we have Puppet Master X Axis Rising. You might think with a title like Puppet Master X, you think it's the 10th film of the franchise. Nope! This is the 11th film of the franchise, or maybe 12. So I'm like, why would they call it Puppet Master X if it's like the 11th or 12th film of the franchise? That, first of all, that gives it right away. But like I said, kind of with the previous film, it wasn't really much of a memorable film. Like I said, still kind of between the concept of kind of World War II, which there are three films during this time period. There's another film that we're talking about a bit higher, it's a bit higher on the list, but those two films, even though they're one consecutive story with the third film, I feel like Axis Rising kind of has a bit better kills than Termination, not by a lot, but the same things that apply to what I said about Axis Termination kind of applies to Axis Rising. And for those reasons, I have Puppet Master X Axis Rising at my number 13. Number 12 is Blade the Iron Cross. So pretty much they kind of want to make, the main puppet Blade, which is one of my favorite in terms of like underrated horror icons, which a lot of people don't talk about Blade that much. This little puppet has a knife and a freaking hook for hands, which is fucking amazing. About which Funko, if you're watching this, make a Funko Pop out of that. I will fucking buy the living crap out of it. But to kind of make a side story for kind of lone puppets is a good concept, but I feel the execution wasn't the greatest in my opinion. But has some okay kills. Like I said, mostly some of the kills in the latter films in the Puppet Master franchise are been kind of misses for me. There may be one or two films in the later franchise that are actually consider them to be pretty good, but we'll get to those when we get to those higher in a bit. But Blade the Iron Cross was an okay film, so for those reasons, I put it at my number 12. At number 11, we have Puppet Master The Legacy. Now, a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, they kind of put this one and the next one I'm going to talk about a bit lower in the list because they're kind of more. Pretty much, The Legacy is kind of a recap of the films in the previous films, kind of recapping everything by adding some some more stuff to the film, which I've talked about before. You've seen my Phantasm film when I talked about Phantasm 4, when they had a lot of footage that they didn't, were able to use for the first film and kind of reuse some of the footage for the fourth film, but added more to it, made the lore even better. It works, but for the sake of, in this film with Puppet Master The Legacy, it didn't kind of work. I felt it was kind of very cheap. It kind of was a way to guess make a film just for the hell of making it, not to make a film to add more to the lore. So that kind of was a big mech for me. But that's it's just basically a recap of the franchise so far. So it's kind of like, what the hell. So for those reasons, Puppet Master The Legacy is at my number 11. At number 10, we have Retro Puppet Master. Now this is kind of a prequel to the Puppet Master, basically the guy who created the puppets, but pretty much on a way kind of retconning some of the stuff, because pretty much the guy, the puppeteer, kind of dies or commits suicide in the first film, but this kind of takes place during and after the events of Puppet Master. So again, they're kind of retconning their own selves by adding how the Puppet Master, the puppeteer, became the puppeteer before he committed suicide or was killed, or kind of retcon. So it's a big of a mess film. And actually, this one was one of the first films in the Puppet Master franchise that I actually watched. And I was probably like 14, 15 years old. I do want to say that the puppets in this film are kind of a bit more memorable, not as much as the original puppets, which we'll talk about in a bit. But as one of the films that actually I began watching this franchise, as like I said, when I was 14, 15, has some memorable moments. But after rewatching some of the films and the earlier films, it kind of went down more on my list. So nothing against this film. Again, nothing against the entire series. Then again, some of the series you can say is kind of hit and miss. But to me, Retro Puppet Master was a okay film. Like I said, we're gonna get a bit better to the better films down the list, up the list. So Retro Puppet Master, to me, it's at my number 10, 10, 10. At number 9, we have Curse of the Puppet Master. Kind of the same thing with the Retro Puppet Master, but a bit better, even though the CGI wasn't really the greatest. The Puppet Master franchise has a lot of misses than hits, in my opinion. But for this film, I believe it's kind of a bit kind of in the middle. You have some misses that let it become kind of memorable, and you have some memorable moments or kind of missed moments. But it's one of those films I really don't hear a lot of hardcore Puppet Master fans actually praising as one of their best films. And as a first time watcher, which the majority of this franchise I actually saw for the first time, except for probably the first maybe 5 to 6 films, in my opinion. So, for me going into this blindly, I kind of was a bit of a letdown. It's kind of like, it's kind of there and there, not really too special about it. So, for those reasons, I have The Curse of Puppet Master at my number 9. At number 8, we have Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. Now, I think from now on, I think these films are kind of a bit more memorable, more enjoyable to watch. But when you have the concept of Puppet Master and Demonic Toys together in a film, which when I first was researching for this film and trying to see the films that I have to watch, when I came across this one, I was like, there's no way this is an actual film. I thought it was going to be like maybe somebody like a fan-made film. Nope, this is an actual film. And like I said, having the puppets and the demonic toys in a film, the concept alone is mind-boggling. The execution isn't the greatest, but it's a guilty pleasure film, to be honest. Even though the CGI isn't the greatest, the acting isn't the greatest, just the concept of having the puppets and the demonic toys in a film fighting, it boggles my mind. But it's a guilty pleasure of mine that sometimes, even though it's a bad movie, it's a bad film that's actually turns out to be a bit better than expected. So don't ask me in the comments, but Puppet Master with Demonic Toys might be a film that I might suggest a new Puppet Master fan to watch just for once with the hell of it, because I think it's a pretty cool idea that wasn't executed as much as it used to, but I can appreciate what they were trying to do in this situation. At number 7, we have Puppet Master Axis of Evil. This is the first film in this new trilogy of films of the Axis trilogy, whatever you want to call it. This is the first one that came out in this new Axis trilogy, And to me, this is probably the better film of all the Axis films because, like I mentioned before, this takes place during World War II. Like I said, kind of almost a bit retconning what happened in the first Puppet Master film, the very first one, but kind of taking a bit more liberty to it. And again, the kills are a bit more memorable. I believe that the puppets have a bit more influence, or maybe more, they give it more screen time than they should because, of course, they're the almost the main antagonist or protagonist of the film. Even though they're not really the main antagonists, or kind of are at first, but so on and so forth. I do believe that this film's a bit more memorable than the Axis films later that I've talked about previously. But to me, Axis of Evil, a bit more of an enjoyable film, a bit of more of a fun film to be honest. Like I said, it kind of has that lackluster of, I guess, notoriety because, like I said, at this time the Puppet Master franchise has been going down the hill for so many films. But with Axis of Evil, it kind of helped it a bit to, I guess, almost made it more memorable, a bit more out there. But again, like I said, the previous films kind of make that go even downhill. But Axis of Evil to me, it's probably the better films of the Axis trilogy, in my opinion. At number 6, we have Puppet Master 5, The Final Chapter. Now, to me personally, the final chapter was kind of a better way to kind of send off the Puppet Master franchise because, like I mentioned before, like I mentioned with the Friday the 13th franchise, The Final Chapter, Part 4, I do believe that after a franchise has gone its course for God knows how many films, I do believe it's time for a franchise to finally end. And I do believe, but then again, there's another film that I'm going to talk about later that should have been the final chapter. But Puppet Master 5, it almost tried to recreate the things that Puppet Master 4 tried to do, continuing the story from Puppet Master 4, but it kind of extended more of that. And I do believe that it kind of backfires in some perspective of that. But the final chapter, I mean, it was a fitting title for the film, but I believe they should have named it something else because the previous film, Papa 4, in my opinion, it should have been the final chapter if they would have made it. Pretty much, if they would have taken the best scenes from Puppet Master 4, Puppet Master 5, combine it into one film and call it the final chapter, I think it would have been a more fitting film. But for the reasons for Puppet Master 5, the final chapter, it respectively ranks at my number 6. And my number 5, we have Puppet Master 2. Now, this is the sequel to the first film, and I mentioned before, a lot of films, their second outing is a bit more critical film. Like I mentioned before, when you have, like for example, Child's Play 2 has been beloved by a lot of fans more than the first Child's Play, or it could go the other way around. When Nightmare on Elm Street 1 was beloved by fans, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 wasn't really beloved by fans. So it depends on the situation. And unfortunately, Puppet Master 2 kind of takes that Nightmare on Elm Street kind of perspective, but it has some bit more memorable kills to my opinion. I do believe that the Puppet Master 2 is a bit more in line with the original film because the ideas are there, the concept is there, the kills are a bit better in my opinion. And I'm not saying it's one of the most goriest films of all time. Then again, Puppet Master franchise isn't really well known for being a very gory film. They have some kills that are a bit gory, but not to the extent of something like a Friday the 13th or maybe something like Saw, but still has an enjoyable little thing in the middle. With Puppet Master 2, I believe the story was not the best, but still the overarching of itself, I think it was a bit better. But it's something that I do recommend every Puppet Master fan who wants to watch the film to watch, probably this one as well. At number 4, we have Puppet Master 3, Toland's Revenge. Toland's Revenge is one of those films that I do believe has a bit more better stuff than the franchise should have been, because it has a bit more creative ways of including the puppets in this franchise. Like I mentioned before, Blade has arguably been the mascot of the entire franchise, because alongside maybe another puppet like Pinhead, Blade's the one that kind of they bring out mostly me. I mean, for Fox, like I mentioned before, they made his own fucking film. That tells you how much Blade has become synonymous with the Puppet Master franchise. And Toland's Revenge, I mean, it's in the title pretty much, but like I mentioned before, the Puppet Master franchise has a lot of misses than hits. This one is a bit more of a better film than the franchise, so take it for what it is. But Puppet Master 3, pretty good film. A bit not very gory, has some okay kills, more memorable than probably the second film. But regardless of that, Puppet Master 3: Toland's Revenge ranks at my number 4. At number 3, this is going to be a bit shocking to have a bit higher in the list. We have Puppet Master: The Litterist Rag. This is the film that came out after the Axis trilogy, and to be honest, this film has some of the most memorable kills I've seen in a long while when it comes to the Puppet Master franchise. This is probably one of the, I think this is the last film in the franchise as of now, if I remember correctly. It might be another one that I couldn't remember, but this film kind of helped the Puppet Master franchise to a brighter light. Like I said, the kills are a bit more gory than this. The puppets are more in the film as much as some people thinking they shouldn't be as much of the film because it kind of loses their kind of mystique to the puppets. So there's that. But I do believe that this is one of the most memorable films in the entire Puppet Master franchise that I do recommend you go to watch, and you're gonna have a fucking blast watching this film. Don't ask me because, like I said, depends on your mood. Like I said, for all this, I mean, this entire list and the list I've done before, my mood can change automatically, and I could say my number 1 could be at the very bottom. It all depends. But for now, The Litterist Rag ranks at my number 3. At number 2, we have Puppet Master 4. Now, like I said before, I do believe that Puppet Master 4 should have been the last film in this entire franchise because it kind of has a bit more of a swan song to the franchise, like I mentioned before. They could have taken the best parts out of part 4, the best parts out of part 5, smash them together and create Puppet Master 4. It would have been a fitting way to end the franchise properly, because after Puppet Master 5, like I mentioned before, they kind of would try to go back to the origins, kind of retcon some of the stuff, going back to World War II, retcon some of the stuff in World War II, make some spin-offs. Like I said, Puppet Master 4 to me was the best way to end the franchise, in my opinion. Has a bit more memorable kills. Again, Puppet Master 4 is a crazy film, to be honest, but if you're not really a big fan of the Puppet Master franchise like myself, not the biggest Puppet Master franchise, you might say this is a total bullshit film. To me, it's a pretty good film, in my opinion. And of course, at number 1, the original Puppet Master. This is the only film out of the entire Puppet Master franchise I could actually sit and enjoy the living crap out of it, because I remember, I will say, I think it was around 2016, 2017, actually even a bit earlier than that, maybe around 2014, when AMC, back in the day, if you all still remember when AMC used to do their few Fridays on AMC, when it was around maybe 8, maybe 7 in the afternoon to 8 in the afternoon, and they used to put some horror movies from there to probably to 3 in the morning. And one of the first ones I actually saw in that time slot was the first Puppet Master, and it kind of intrigued me that they kind of took the concept of Chucky, but kind of made it more out there, because who would have thought, if you think one killer doll wasn't enough, having 3 to 4 to 5 puppets running loose and killing people, that alone just is fucking creepy. But like I said, I love everything about this film. Blade, like I said, I mentioned before, Blade has become the mascot of the entire franchise. It's one of those films that I do believe it's one of the most underrated horror franchises, and Puppet Master, the first one, is one of the most underrated horror films. I'm not saying it's gonna be like top 10 horror films of all time, in my opinion. If I were to rank probably the Puppet Master, the first one, in like the top 100 films of all horror films of all time, might be maybe in the 90s slot. So nothing against the Puppet Master, but like I said, to me, has become the film that I kind of go watch more when it comes to the Puppet Master franchise. The film that kind of I remember watching when I was, like I mentioned before, around maybe when I was like in 18, 19, 20 years old, kind of helped the way for me to watch the entire franchise and kind of be like, this is a hit, this is a mess. And to me, the first Puppet Master has always been the standout film that I remember the most of it. Of course, like I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest Puppet Master fan, but to me, when it comes to this franchise, the first film is always my favorite. So for those reasons, The First Puppet Master is at my number 1. And that's just for the video, guys. I hope you guys really enjoy this rank. Well, like I said, a bit of a weird franchise when I'm talking about 14 fucking films, which I cannot believe is going for this long for 14 films. And I do believe they're going to make another film next year or the beginning of 2024. So don't quote me on that, but I think I read it somewhere, so we'll see about that. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video for episode number 21. We're gonna be ranking the entire Wrong Turn franchise, another franchise that has been kind of been talked in popularity, but I do remember watching the first 3 films out of hand. But love to see about that for tomorrow's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do that shebang. Don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. Don't forget to follow me on my Twitter. And like I said, guys, we're almost to the very end of my 31 Days of Horror, which is kind of fucking sucks. But we're gonna end with a bang, so stay tuned for that, guys. Stay safe, everyone. And until next time, stay metal.